how to do evaluations. So I had to think hard and long as to why I do what I do and how I do it. Often people will say, wow, we really like how you do that. Can you explain how you do it? And sometimes it's easier said than done. So a couple of years ago, after I won one of the competitions, I had the help of one of my club mates named Lise Trudel, and she basically took me apart, and the result was this kind of workshop. So on the webinar, I will be giving you a lot of tips and tricks. There is a handout that goes along with it. Sometimes I speak a little fast, but if you have a pen and paper, you'll notice that I like to use a lot of acronyms. So there's going to be a lot of those thrown out at you, and hopefully you get something out of this. As was mentioned by Scott, there will be a question and answer period at the end. I've tried to make this webinar equally exciting for everybody. So the first slide that you're looking at right now is the maturity model for a speaker and an evaluator. And I understand that we probably have all kinds of people on the line, from the level 1, which is the basic new member, up to the level 6, which is the person who is wanting to compete in a competition. I'm just basically giving you a quick look at this. We will look at this a little bit later in the webinar as well, but I just wanted to make you guys all aware that, you know, it's not just for the beginners, it's not just for the people who want to be in a competition, but originally I was trying to devise tips and tricks so people could follow me and then compete against me at the different competition levels. And as checking some of the names on the chat list, I see that some of my friends and fellow competitors are there. Do you find evaluations confusing and hard? This is a question that I often get from new members or relatively new people, and they'll be like, I could never give an evaluation to a DTM or a distinguished Toastmaster or anybody. And I'm like, listen, everybody has got their own set of world or life experiences that they can draw on. And some people have definitely got a bigger bag of, you know, resources and experiences, but everybody has something that works for them, like a feeling or an impression. And it's those things that really work well when you're able to combine those in a evaluation that people really get a little bit more out of it. So there was a little quote slash Facebook thing that popped up about a month ago. I think it was Craig who had sent it around, and it's another acronym. So I thought this was perfect for our presentation today, and it's called THINK. And obviously the first part is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? And I think this is good for almost anybody. You know, when they say you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth and we should listen twice as long before as half as much as we speak. So thinking about it, today we're on, you know, the Bell Let's Talk About Mental Health Day, and words actually have a lot of power. So many times, or not so many times, I don't know exactly how many times it's been, but many times I've seen evaluations of newer speakers, and I've never seen those speakers come back because they maybe had too hard of a evaluation. And I know sometimes I may have been responsible for that as well in my number of years as going along. Maybe I was too hard on too new of a speaker, things like that. So we got to be careful of the words that we use, the generalizations that we use, because we have the power to uplift people, and we also have the power to crush people when we give our different evaluations. So with that in mind, we will be looking at some different ways to make our speeches more applicable. So this particular acronym sauce is what I was able to develop with the help of one of my fellow Toastmasters in my home club of Dollard, a lady named Lise Trudel. And she always wanted to find out what made me tick. So after many hours of therapy and distilling me down to the brass tacks of how I do a evaluation, this is what came out of it. So I'm going to share that with you. Now, I don't believe that there's anything new or original necessary in my presentation, and this is probably one of my favorite quotes. If you steal from one author, it's plagiarism. If you steal from many, it's research. Wilson Meisner. So there will be a lot of different things that I've either begged, borrowed, or stole from other Toastmasters. I will try to quote references and sources where applicable. So this is Some quotes from Lance Miller. We might recognize him. He was the 2005 world champion, and I had the honor of being his aide de camp when he visited us in 2013. And I got to sitting and chatting with him and got some of his material. And he has some really good stuff on evaluations if you're looking for a good CD and some good techniques. So evaluations are the key to the Toastmaster educational communication program. Every prepared speech, table topic, and educational presentation should be evaluated. Lance has taught himself to be a really good evaluator by looking at his speeches, and he likes to think that it's to do it in a way that inspires them, meaning the other person that you're evaluating, to come back next week. Sometimes people don't come back next week. And this takes all of the evaluator's skills, because we have to be a counselor, an evaluator, a motivator, a coach. We have to be all of those things, as well as, the huggy, soft, fluffy kind of person as well, in order to make people feel good. So I just thought I would throw that in. So there's many different keys that help a good evaluation. The key ingredients are reasonable and challenging goals that gradually increase in difficulty, and clear and frequent feedback. Keeping score lets us know how we are doing against sets of standards. The experts say that this combination is the best formula for success. It's transforming our learning tasks into accomplishments, and we get a lot of satisfaction with these incremental wins. So the definition of evaluation. An evaluation tells us where we stand. It's an assessment, ranking, or rating. It always offers comparison, either explicitly or implicitly, against a set of standards or against others. An evaluation helps us to clarify what should be done and helps us decide how to readjust our goals. Did you know that there are lots of people who benefit from each evaluation? Let me tell you about the benefits. So as we know, evaluations help three different types of people, right? They help the speaker, the audience, and ourselves as evaluators. So first, as a speaker, it's important that we all receive effective evaluations to know what we are doing well and to help us improve. Second, as evaluators, remember, we are designated as judges, and we influence how the speech is perceived by both the speaker and the audience. The most important things to find is what is right with the speaker and the speech to identify the strengths. Since we don't want to whitewash, we want to identify only one or two big items to correct, the things we think are the best bang for the buck, and that the speaker can quickly practice to improve. For the audience one here, the audience benefits because they see the speech in action, and they benefit from the perspective of the evaluator. And they enjoy a concise speech that instructs and entertains, and hopefully they also learn some skills in it as well. So here it helps us as the evaluator. Finally, we should all learn to give evaluations. We build our understanding of what works and what doesn't for effective speeches, which sharpen our own speaking skills. We learn a multitude of key leadership skills, such as to inspire, to motivate, to listen, and to provide effective feedback and criticism. And this helps us to develop and establish stretch goals. So here is Todd's secret sauce. So the acronym for SAUCE, as you can see, is 1 cup of specific, 1 cup of appreciation, 2 cups of understanding, 2 cups of coaching, and 1 cup of evaluation. To be specific, when I evaluate a speaker, I need to have a clear set of specific objectives in mind. After all, if I don't know where I'm going, how can I get there? I need to have objectives for the content and for the delivery. Where do my objectives come from? Well, we know that there are 4 types of speeches typically. There's the entertaining, the informal, the persuasive, or the influential. When I'm listening to a contest speech, though, or a speech in the outside world, there are no standards to consider. So I should use a type of speech that best works in that situation. By that I mean, in the Competent Communicator Manual or the old legacy program, the speeches all have objectives. Just like in Pathways, they all have objectives. So based on the objectives for each speech, those would be the specific things that I'm looking for, as well as the conversation that I've had with the speaker before, in order to see if there's anything special that they are looking for as well, or what I might be able to observe, or what they might be working on as their stretch goals. Everyone wants appreciation. It is more important that I find what is right than what is wrong. People often don't appreciate or value their strengths. and they are intimidated if they only hear suggestions for improvement. I need to let the speaker know that I appreciate the work that the person has put into the speech, the person's point of view, the person's strengths, and the quality of the speech. It really boosts the speaker's motivation when they hear from me and express my appreciation. The only challenge is that I must not justify or just use platitudes or AKA give them a whitewash. The two U's, or the two cups of U of understanding, one is for content and one is for how, and you'll see how in the next slide. The speech has two aspects. The first is the content and the second is the delivery. Let's start with content. I must do my best to understand the speaker's message, if they have one. I need to assess if the speaker's key message is clear, AKA the one sentence takeaway. What will I most remember when I leave that evening? I need to assess if the speaker's structure supports that key message, like the opening, the body, the conclusion, and the other points like the examples, anecdotes, and visuals. Understanding is made up of two things, listening and empathizing. In order to truly listen, my job is to really pay attention to all channels of communication used by the speaker. That means I have to focus on both the verbal and the non-verbal message. I have to emphasize with the speaker, and empathy is my capacity to think intellectually and feel emotionally into the speaker's point of view. Empathy is not agreement or sympathy, and it is never about me. I maintain my objectivity and I focus on the speaker. When the speaker sees that I react or respect him or her, I am totally interested in his point of view. He will openly receive my comments. There are two cups of C. One is to coach the delivery and one is to coach the how. So do I feel that the speaker's delivery supported the key message and the other parts of the speech? Yes or no? This is where I need to assess how the speaker handles the mechanics of delivery, such as vocal tone, variety, pause, eye contact, body language, stance, appearance. Here is where I can consider what the speaker does that holds my interest and what the speaker does that distracts me. This is the how do I make the person more able. I need to discover only one or two items to correct. More than that, and they will get frustrated. I should focus on the key practices, use it now suggestions. These should be something that the speaker can take home and apply to the next speech. The challenge is that people often give vague feedback. I might tell the speaker to use better vocal variety. The speaker thinks he already is good. This generic statement isn't helping the person to use that technique. I need to give one or two examples from the speech where the vocal variety was good, or how it can be improved, or what we could use to make it better. How the speaker understands the context and understands how I think my tips should be applied. I need to always think, what can I say to make this person more able? And if you notice in the word evaluation, there is value. So this is where we stir all of the ingredients together and come up with the evaluation part. And remember, evaluation should also come and or with before coaching. We are not all designated as coaches, or that's not what Toastmasters is about. It's to evaluate, not necessarily to be a coach per se. So we have to use the standards that are in the book that we're looking at. Remember, in our evaluation speech, it's just like any other speech. We need to entertain, inform the speaker and the audience. Now we're back to the maturity model that I was showing you earlier in addressing the different people who are on this call or this webinar. Sometimes if you have an advanced evaluator and a beginner speaker, there could be a disconnect. The speaker is at a certain level of skill and experience, and they may only be just learning to crawl, and they haven't accumulated enough experiences, so the evaluator should adjust the verbiage and wording accordingly. Therefore, if you had a more advanced speaker who might be somebody at a level 4, level 5, the evaluation could be a little bit more tough love, if you want to call it, because they should have acquired the skills at the earlier levels and be able to accept a higher, more sincere, more honest level of evaluation. So I just wanted to make that aware, because sometimes people just don't get it. And sometimes that scares people away from being evaluators, is because they figure they don't have it. And I think everybody has something in them to share, and there'll be a quote of that later at the end of the webinar as well. So this is the infamous or famous sandwich method that we majorly use in our evaluations, where we have an opening, a body, and a conclusion. And I believe I first learned this evaluation style when I was a lifeguard and a swimming instructor. I was using it often to, encourage the kids in their swimming skills. Then again, I came across it early on in Toastmasters, and most recently, if you want a good resource to look up, you might want to write down this name and type it into your Google search. It's Andrew, Andrew, Dulgan, Dlugan, and he has a 6-part speech evaluation kind of program. The number 3 modified sandwich technique for evaluation is where some of this material comes from, or as best part that I've seen available, I should say. What I have done here on the next 2 slides is flip the hamburger on its side. So you can see the buns are to the left and to the right of the screen, and you'll see numbers designating where you would fill in the appropriate parts to help you with your evaluation per se. So usually the bun is the greeting at the top, the platitudes about who's in the audience, and something probably about, what project and what objectives the speaker had. The middle, which is separated, is some of the places where I think I can find the improvement or help them to see something better. The number 5s and number 6, the bottom part of the bun is, again, something that really kind of touched me, and then the overall summation at the end. If you flip to the next screen, you'll see a filled-in version that you could use for this kind of an example if you were to use it on a speech that you were giving. And again, for more of the deeper steps, you can look at that handout that I told you at Andrew Dulgan's website. The 4 steps to success. This is typically what we do before, during, and after for the presentation of our evaluation. And if you look at the little steps. Okay, now you are ready to do an evaluation. Step 1, before the speech starts, prepare the specific objectives. Remember content and delivery. This is also the time when you talk to the speaker, get their manual, and hopefully if you're on Pathways, downloaded it or they have brought it for you. Just a little sidebar here. You can actually get all of the different pathway evaluation criteria, like the 3-page kind of documents. A couple of different clubs in District 61 have them available. I believe they are available on the Concordia Free Toast Host site, and I believe Beyond Words also has a version that you can basically look up what you're going to be giving as a speech and download them. Or at the end, there will be a handout that will go with this file from Amy Campbell gave a effective evaluation workshop at the Recognition Luncheon District in November, and she also presented at a couple of the last TLIs with her evaluation workshop. And she had a blank or generic kind of evaluation form for the pathways, and she also had a feel, felt, found formula one as well that was really good. And I also have a really interesting one that I use from Andrew Dulgan's website as well. It's called Speech Analyze Guide, and those could be available. Step 2, during the meeting or during the, while the speaker is speaking, I often like to take a blank piece of paper and do the T evaluation. That's basically making a large kind of T, and on the left-hand side of the T, what I liked about the speech, on the right side, what I feel is for improvement, and the space at the bottom, a little bit of the extra wow or my takeaway kind of thing. And this provides me an opportunity to not have to worry so much about fitting the speaker's speech into the objectives as to taking miniature kind of notes and being present and listening to the speaker, because sometimes the words that we hear don't match with the body movement, or there's things that are not congruent. And if you're got your head on the paper writing all the time, you're not going to observe or notice that. And I think that's where, if you refer back to a couple of the parts of the sauce, if you're more present and engaged, there's things that you feel, see, and understand internally or intrinsically that you wouldn't get if you weren't present, if you want to call it that. So people always ask me what makes good evaluators, and there's inevitably a list that you'll see. First slide has got 1 through 5. These are in no particular order. There's 10 of them that I came up with. So I've put them into this presentation so you can look at them and see if you fit those criteria, and then you would know if you're an effective evaluator. So show that you care, suit your evaluation to the speaker, learn the speaker's objectives, listen actively, personalize your language. Remember, when we give an evaluation, we're not the be-all and end-all. It's, talking from our point of view, and if we can keep it how it affects us and we can show that to the speaker, I think that has the greatest impact and effect if we speak with what I refer to as I statements. I felt, I saw, I heard, as opposed to we do, they do, you should do. You shouldn't should all over people. It's bad. You should talk from how it affects you more. So here we give positive reinforcement, help the speaker to become motivated, evaluate behavior, not people, nourish self-esteem, show the speaker how to improve. Sometimes people say, well, how can I show them how to improve? Well, if you give a speech and they like how you give a speech, maybe they could also improve by watching how you give a speech. The better speakers, I've noticed, are the ones who are also the better evaluators. By stretching ourselves to learn from others, we can then do better because we have more examples and more reference points. People often say, oh, I don't want to go to the competitions. I say, you should go to the competitions, because if you always just stay at your club, the best you will ever see is the best that's at your club. But if you keep going to the next level, up and up and up, there are different people who have different techniques and different skills, and everybody can learn from everybody. And I think it's a shame that for the low cost that it costs to go to like a division kind of contest, that not more people go when especially they want to get better. They say if you spend 10,000 hours doing anything, you should be an expert. Well, if you've only done 5 evaluations, I don't think you should be an expert. I could say you're probably on your way, but if you've done 100 or 200 evaluations, then I'd hope you're starting to get pretty good. And if you've done over 1,000 evaluations, well, you should be a finely honed saw, and you'd probably be at that level 6 in the maturity level as an evaluator. When I go to a contest level evaluation, inevitably on the judges form, there are things like, do you use a summary at the end? Do you have a logical flow for them? And at one time, I didn't see it on the judges report the last time I looked at it, but they would like you to give them some sort of a method that you are going to use. The GGG is what I call the glow, grow, and go. So that's what is I liked about it, where can you do better, and where can you take it from here. So that's another one of my acronyms. I also like to use the WOW, what I liked, opportunities for improvement, where we can take this speech from here. The VEG mode is your voice, your eye contact, your gestures. The code that's content, organization, delivery, and E is for energy or enthusiasm. And there are many more that I didn't put on here, but some of them are in the handout. Obviously, if you've gone to contests, you can see some of the different people and you can ask them. I mean, I've competed against Craig Sr. and Raymond Brisebois and Steve Gagné, and there's different people who have different skill sets. And until you ask them, and most people are willing to share, you'll never know. So if you ask, you might get. If you ask me, I'll probably tell you, because I like having more people in the sandbox playing at the next level. It's often, I've had 2 of my mentors and I've had 3 or 4 of my mentees that I've competed with at different times, and it's always fun to see who does better that day. It's unfortunate, I mentioned this a day or 2 ago, that we don't record enough of the evaluations or table topics so that those members who are sequestered in the room would have a chance to see why they lost or how they could do better in the future. Because if you never know and nobody ever tells you, there's no way you're going to improve. If you needed to just fine tune one or two pieces and that could take you to the next level, wouldn't you love to know that? I mean, some people may or may not be lazy and they might not look for it, but some people who are serious hardcore competitors, they want to know where they can get an edge any way they can. That's where I think video and these webinars will help in the future, is people can go back and look for those little nuggets that will give them the edge. This was just a reiteration of who the evaluations help. Obviously the speaker, hopefully first, the audience second, and of course you. And I've also noticed that if you see one, teach one, do one, be one, inevitably in your club, the next time somebody that I have evaluated, they often will remember what I pointed out in them, and they will point it out in the next person. Because until we're made aware of what we don't know what we don't know. It's kind of like the scotoma effect, right? So it's great that people do the monkey do, monkey see, but it's also great that they start seeing that there's something else out there beside, oh, I liked your gestures, or I liked your vocal variety, and you're actually digging a little bit deeper. It's when you dig deeper that I think the real stuff flourishes. This is just an example of some of the resources that are available through Toastmasters. Obviously, there's the effective evaluation, there's the evaluate to motivate, articles in Toastmasters magazine. There was an article actually in the January issue on evaluations that you might want to take a look at as well. It's talking more about how to find the pathways evaluations, if I remember correctly. These are some of the quotes that I like. This is what I learned. Everybody is talented. Original has something important to say. Brenda Yulin. This is by far probably one of my favorite quotes from Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. I've done a couple of trainings with some youth with the youth leadership programs. Often I have run into some of the students later on at McDonald's or wherever it happens to be, and they go, I remember you. You're the guy who did such and such. You were in our class. And I said, oh, great. I said, it's nice to hear that you remember. And I said, have you done anything with it? And it's often, they said that they had fun and they enjoyed it and that we brought out something great in them. And I always say, if we can help the younger generation get a voice, that is a great thing. If this was a live workshop, this is where we would actually go into the target speaker and target evaluator. This is the time when we can unmute people and go for a little bit of question and answers. It's also, you can see my email up there and some of the ways that you can find some of the resources. So
what do you recommend if we have a member who may have done a few speeches and is really uneasy about giving feedback?
What I have done for that kind of typical question is I offer a buddy and or mentoring system where I will ask the new member or the younger member to do the evaluation, but I will also stand beside them at the front or wherever we are giving the evaluation from. And if for some reason that evaluator loses track or falls off the turnip truck or whatever, I'll pick them up, or sometimes I'll ask them a question that digs a little bit deeper and like the why, how come, not just the straight yes, no, but the kind of digging that elicits more thought to the answer, if you want to call it that. And if for some reason, I often try to do it like in a three-step kind of facet. Like I'll do it once, then I'll have them stand up and do it, and I'll support, and then the third time they're kind of like doing it by themselves.
What do you do if you really hate the speech?
If you really hate the speech, is that because you have a bias towards the subject matter, or is it because they got up and sat down in like 30 seconds?
Could be all kinds of reasons.
I believe everybody deserves your time, and because they've put the work in it, there's usually something that I can find that will leave them feeling happy. But if I really didn't like it, I won't air that publicly. I may speak to the speaker on the QT. and try to find some clarifying points as to why they did what they did that maybe didn't irk me the right way. But I definitely will try to paint them in the most positive light. Like, you know, sometimes if a speaker sits up or stands down because they panicked, they froze, or whatever, I'll try to encourage them. And sometimes when I've had a speaker who froze, I will say, hey, you know what? Take a 2-minute break, and then let's do it again from the top. If people get shot down too quickly, they'll have a harder time to come back and play again. If you can catch somebody on the falling down and pick them back up and show them that it's okay to make a mistake in that room, they will feel that much better because you're not looking down at them, you're helping them to try to find something to step up to. Now, if it's something that for some reason I didn't like the topic, I won't try to let my biases affect the material. I will go more in that kind of speech to the delivery and the other aspects that could be looked at. So maybe I hate the topic. Well, I'll try to find something to talk about that is not maybe the content. I'll go more with the delivery. It was great to be on the webinar with you guys. Hopefully you got something out of it, and not only get something out of it, but actually do something with it in your next evaluations that you give. And some of you, maybe we'll see you on the stage competing in the next couple of weeks.
Thanks, Todd.
Great. Thanks,
Not a
Todd.
problem.
Right, Scott. Thank you, Scott.
Great information.